Here we are, guys, tutorial number 2. Pretty basic, same thing that we just did. Let's take a look again. The first thing that you should be looking at here is I see sulfur has 8 atoms. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that down so I kind of know what I'm trying to get to. And I see that oxygen has 2 atoms. So that's what I'm starting with. And what that means is that the law of conservation of mass says that if I start with 8 sulfurs, I should end with 8 sulfurs. And if I start with 2 oxygens, I should end with 2 oxygens. But when I look at the right-hand side of this equation, I see that I only have 1 sulfur and I actually have 3 oxygens, which means we're going to have to add some coefficients here. I've added some lines here before the compounds just to show you where we can add a coefficient. Not necessarily that we are going to add a coefficient there, but we can. So let's start with the sulfur. We've got 8 sulfurs on the left, which means we want 8 on the right. The only possible way that you can get 8 sulfurs here is to add a coefficient of 8. Remember, we cannot add subscripts to compounds. They are what they are. The only thing that we can do is change the number of molecules, which is what that coefficient represents. So when I put that coefficient of 8 in front of the SO3, that now gives me 8 sulfurs on the right-hand side of the equation. And whenever I put that 8 there, it also changes my number of oxygens. With that subscript of 3 and that coefficient of 8, you multiply the two numbers together to figure out that oxygen actually has now 24 atoms on the right-hand side of this equation. So when you look at this, your sulfurs are both balanced at this point, but your oxygens are not. So the question is, how can I get 24 oxygen atoms right here? Well, the only way to get 24 oxygen atoms is to put a coefficient of 12 in front of the oxygen. So now 12 times 2 gives you 24 oxygens. And again, law of conservation of mass is complete. 8 sulfurs on both sides, 24 oxygens on both sides. And again, you do not have to show your work down here. It's just for people who might need help keeping track of the atoms.